Hi, Nancy. How are you?
I'm well, Shannon. Thanks for asking. Yeah, it's really good to be here with you this morning. I've been really looking forward to having this conversation with you.
I can't wait to see where it goes. So tell me, Nancy, what's your story?
Well, I don't remember a time when I wasn't completely at home in water. And that was a big deal because my mom didn't know, neither of my parents knew how to swim. My mother had been thrown into a lake off a boat at some point and nearly drowned. I think someone thought it was a good idea to teach her to swim that way, and it became a big joke in the family. And she held that terror until she died.
Wow.
Um, and she made a decision that for a couple of things about her three daughters. One was that we would get to go to college, which she didn't get to do as the only daughter. And she made sure that we all got college degrees and paid for that and sacrificed so much to make that happen.
Wow.
And she made sure that her three daughters knew how to swim. So those were the two sort of guiding principles of how my mother was going to make sure her daughters had better lives than she did.
Amazing.
And so I don't remember learning to swim. I don't remember it happened so early in my life. And I was never a swimmer. And I think that's an important distinction for me. Like I never competed. I never was on a team. I was not interested in swimming as an exercise. It was just a place of play and joy with my sisters, whether it was a lake or eventually we did end up getting a pool when we moved to Tucson because my dad, both my parents were permanently disabled, and water was one of the few places he could move without pain. And
Wow.
so the pool was really therapeutic for him and probably therapeutic for our whole family in different ways, but became a site of great joy and hours of endless playing after we moved to Tucson from Detroit, Michigan.
Wow.
So, and that's pretty much what water stayed for me. There was a period in the early aughts when I did a couple of triathlons, and uh, man, I'll just say the swimming part was my least favorite part. They didn't go well. I had lots of panic attacks. I got kicked in the head a lot. I sort of withdrew my body from the masses of the waves that were going through. I'm not the waves of water, the waves of humans that were entering the water. I just was like, the sooner I can get out of here, the better. Um, and then I haven't really been in water again until 2023.
Wow. Just a couple years ago.
Yeah, it's pretty new. Yeah.
What when you were like preparing for those, understandably, I mean, I did a little triathlon myself, and that's the start of a triathlon is just something I don't even know how to prepare anyone for. I always just tell them, let everyone go. And then you, until you have the confidence to be like up there, like vying for a position. But what was your kind of preparation like for those triathlons? I mean, did you like go back to lap pools, or you just kind of go in and just see what happens?
That is a great question. I am having to dust off what I remember was people telling me you really should do some open water swimming. Did I actually? I might have done one open water practice. I don't think I did an open water practice for the very first one, which was the Blue Lake Triathlon that I did in August of, I don't know, whatever year that was, 2003 or four. Had never been in open water. And so that was the worst one, by far. I think I mostly did pool swimming and mostly ignored the swimming and just focused on cycling and running because I knew I did try to take one lesson. I remember because someone had said it's kind of like new math was like new there are new discoveries in how we swim and our stroke. And I was like, I don't even know what my stroke is. Like, I don't know when I learned to stroke a freestyle, you know? So I think I took and someone was going to videotape me and then like nothing happened. Like I think it was too overwhelming, frankly.
Oh,
I just never felt the confidence like this will never be the place that I'm going to shine. I mean, I never had any illusions I was going to win any of these things, but the swimming was just the hurdle to get to the other things that I felt like way more confident in, I think, and probably more supported in.
Yeah, you're
And
not
then
alone.
I just never got in the water again.
Yeah. what what a way to walk away from it, right? After like few traumatic experiences. Wow, I'm not doing that again. I think I have a
Yep,
very
that thing.
similar story, quite frankly, in my
Really? Oh
triathlon
my
launch, and
God. I had no
I
idea.
walked away until. So take us to 2023. Then what?
2023, then what? Well, it had been a hard year the year before. Um, my mom had declined quite a bit. Lots of things were, I can't remember all the specifics, but I remember getting to Chacala, Mexico, and having lunch with my dearest friend there, Angelica. And she just looked glowy. Like, I don't even know how to explain what was radiating off of her. And I asked her, I was like, tell me what's going on in your life and tell me what's bringing you what's this inner joy that I'm seeing sort of come off of you? And she said, swimming. That was not the answer. I was like, talk to me about, I don't know, good work stuff, good romance stuff. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I was like, was going to have good parenting stuff because she's got two amazing young people. Nothing. It was like swimming. I was like, swimming? She said, yeah. She's like, I have this amazing coach and you should take a lesson. That was all she said. And at that point, I was like, okay, fine. Like, I have nothing to lose. I don't remember the last time I had a proper lesson. Sure, I'll take a lesson.
So before we go there, set the stage a
Yeah,
little bit because I know
yeah,
you and I met first in Chicala.
that's right.
But let's describe it for anyone who's listening, like what that setting's like.
Yeah, it's become a very special place for me. It's actually a town that my mentor in my life's work, the Luna Jimenez Institute for Social Transformation, my mentor Lillian Roybal Rose went 40 some years ago, probably 4 or 5 years before I started working with her, and I didn't know it.
Oh wow.
But she did workshops in the community and at and with through Marejade, which is this award-winning wellness resort that's on the coast of this little fishing village. And they have continued to use her teachings and practices. And I didn't know any of this until
Wow.
2020. So fast forward, I ended up in 2020 there because I was looking for a place to do a retreat. I really wanted to do one in Mexico in honor of my mother and my grandmother and my maternal heritage, which is Mexican. I'm Boricua or Puerto Rican on my dad's side. And I had missed obviously the year after the pandemic, so 2021, and went back in 2022, and then 2023, as now we're fast forwarded. And Chacala is a small fishing village. It probably has about, I don't know, maybe 600 year round residents. It's a little town on the bay, so it's protected from the Pacific Ocean. It's a place where there are often whales will come into the bay during the migration season. And when I was there this last year, a mama brought a baby in to teach them how to dive and breathe and swim. And it's a magical, beautiful place.
It's a beautiful little spot in the world. That's great. It's so neat. I didn't know the backstory about meeting your mentor and things like that there. So that's very cool too.
It felt like destiny that I was supposed to be there. And I'm kind of not questioning it anymore and leaning into it. Living there this year, I was there 4 months. I'm trying to do longer, like a 4 month stint each year if I can set up my life to do that on an ongoing basis. So, which I'm not a cold water swimmer, so it allows me to swim year round, which Portland, I'm sure my cold water swimmer crew up here, I mean, they're like, no, you are a cold water swimmer. I'm like, no, I'm really not. So, this is how it's keeping me in open water year round. So yeah, so fast forward, I guess I'm 2023. I've had lunch with Angelica. She puts me in touch with her coach and I sign up for a lesson. And I think it's going to be a one-time lesson. And I'll be like, great, I'll learn a couple things I can do in a pool, Never open water was in my head, not once in this, which is kind of ironic when I think about it, because I'm like on this gorgeous bay that is like protected and like the most obvious, like now in retrospect, the most obvious place to be swimming, right?
Yeah.
The first lesson was actually in a pool, which was fine because she wanted to record me and do video and sort of see my stroke and my breathing and all that stuff. And the lesson at the end of it, she just was, I don't know how to say it, just saw me in a way that I didn't see myself as a swimmer. I mean, she often says, I don't bullshit people. Sorry, I don't know if you have to beat that. Like I will say what I see. Um, but she really was like, you kind of are a natural swimming wonder.
Hmm.
And that changed things for me in how I saw myself. I don't know whether that's actually true, but in her eyes, it was true. And she seemed pretty confident that, like, with some conditioning, there was no reason I couldn't, if I wanted to, compete or take this to another level. And at this point, what I said to her, I was like, just keep me joyful in the water. And I don't know what will unfold.
Hmm.
You can make all the plans or strategies around what a future in swimming looks like for me. But right now, I think I just want to find myself in water with joy.
Yeah.
She totally loved that idea and backed it 100%. So at the time, I was living on the other side of the volcano, which for the geography of that, it's a 45-minute walk up and down in a ravine and through the jungle. And so I could only do open water swimming once a week with her in the town. Um, and the rest of the time, my workouts were in this basically recreational pool in the condominium that I was in, which again, I was like, great, I like pools. I know pools. That's good. I showed up for my first open water swim lesson. We're standing on the beach and she points out to the shore and she's like, swim out there in to the Alfaro, which is the little buoy lighthouse structure. And I just didn't give it a second thought. And I don't know what possessed me, but I was like,
Wow.
of course I'm going to swim out there. It was probably about 500 meters. And I love the ocean. And of course I'm going to be in the ocean. And I swam without stopping the whole way. It was
Wow.
just amazing. And I'm not fast. I was so slow and I didn't care. And, I think back on how my stroke was then and like really short and stunted and definitely, how did someone describe my kick? You kick as if you're trying to survive in the water as I actually propel yourself. Like I know if I look back now, like what that would have looked like, but I've never looked back. That water is home to me.
Mm.
Yeah.
Where did you, so tell me, you mentioned, that the water was home. You had this pool in Tucson, but where did you develop this love and comfort in the ocean?
I grew up in landlocked Michigan, right? We swam in lakes. I grew up in the desert in Tucson from 10 to basically 18. Um, but the ocean has always been home. And I think that has everything to do with being Caribeña and everything to do with the way that I'm connected to Borinquen, to my father's homeland in Puerto Rico. When I started grad school in Santa Cruz, California, was the first time that I lived on the ocean.
Wow.
And it's a big surfing community. It's not a swimming community. And I took up running not because I liked running, but it allowed me to be on the ocean every day. And I ran on West Cliff, and that was really the start of me, in many ways, being athletic in any way. I
Hmm.
was born disabled, and my parents are both disabled. They're both passed now.
Hmm.
And they were terrified of us doing any kind of recreational physical activity because that was
Hmm.
just like, you're just going to get more injured and you're going to get further disabled. And so
Hmm.
very, very much discouraged from that. I mean, I definitely pushed the boundaries as a young person as much as I could figure out, but they were so scared. And I really internalized a lot of that fear. So I didn't have a lot of confidence in my body and what my body could do. And that really changed with my longtime partner, who was a football player and weightlifter, and was the one who taught me about weightlifting as a meditation. And
Hmm.
it changed my relationship to my body completely. I got really into weightlifting. It was the center of my world. I did weightlifting and yoga at the same time. So it was like a new place of like getting in my body, which, having been born disabled and probably, stuff around sexism and Catholicism, I was really disconnected from my body and like,
Hmm.
don't pay attention to this, focus on your brain, go do good in school, all of that. So it's been a process for me to reclaim this relationship with my body and eventually into the water. I think I've
Wow.
always been meant to be in the ocean, but I don't think I knew that. I
Yeah.
mean, I knew it was like an inner knowing, but I hadn't really set up my life to make that happen.
When you say you're born disabled, can you tell me
Mm.
more?
Yeah, so I was born with hip dysplasia. that so we were on assistance when I was born. So I was born in a state hospital, and my mom doesn't remember the name of the doctor, but this young Indian doctor did an exam on me, and he was like, "You have Shia hip dysplasia," and they took a bunch of X-rays, and they had to basically make a case to justify paying for the brace, and I wore a brace from 3 months to a year. And so those are pretty significant developmental time for a young person.
Yeah.
And I think it has had ongoing physical effects in many ways that I still struggle to like know how to fire my glutes, for example, or how to engage my hips still. And I have been known to do like a long distance running event, basically on the ligaments in my hips, and then not be able to sit for, or stand without pain for a while. So it's been a process for me to like learn how to crawl, like as an adult, to go back and learn some of those motions that I didn't learn as a young person because I was in a brace. Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. So did you ever go back to Puerto Rico and like so you said you were starting, I think you're getting there, you're in Santa Cruz.
I'm in Santa Cruz. I lived in Santa Cruz for 8 years. And again, I did outrigger. I learned to canoe. Like I started to get on the water, but not in the water there. And then in 2000, I went the first time to Puerto Rico when I was 6. And it was an amazing and life-changing experience in many ways. A lot of it was about seeing my dad in his homeland. And it was...
Yeah, I can only imagine.
My dad really never assimilated. He left that island, but the island never left him. And he really wasn't interested in, I don't know, upward mobility or materialism or living in a particular way in the States. And there was just so much of my dad that I saw only when he was there.
Wow.
It was a really beautiful trip. It was a really memorable trip. And then I didn't go back again until 2000 and, what year was it now? 1987, I think. Yeah. So I was 19. It was my junior year at my undergrad at Yale. And I left Yale so I could go do a junior term program, which there was no program. So I just enrolled in the university there. Mostly so that I could get to know my family and get to know my dad's homeland and to finally learn how to speak Spanish, which I had not grown up speaking. And I was the first place on the planet that I had ever been where nobody asked me where I was from.
Oh, wow.
And it was radical on many levels. And it was an absolute homecoming for me. And I think I got super clear then, like, I am Caribeña. This is a home for me. This is my home.
Wow.
And I didn't swim when I was there. But I was on the water every chance I had. I would, walk daily walks on the water, being in the water, anywhere I could get to the water. My cousins were great. I'd go on the weekends to Aguada, which is the place of the waters. That's what the Spaniards call the town, because the Spaniards would go to Aguada from the port, which the port was actually called Puerto Rico, and the island was called San Juan at the time of the colonization of the Spaniards. And they would go to the Aguada to fill up the waters, the fresh waters, for the return ship sail. So water's very central, fresh water.
Yeah.
And ocean water. Yeah. And Aguada is on the coast, on the Atlantic northwest corner of the island. So yeah, lots of water in my story.
I love it. Yeah. So that you said you were walking on the water, you're getting in the water. So you have this relationship with the ocean that you're feeling comfortable there. And
yes. Yeah. And learning about Yemaya, and who is the mother goddess of water, and really knowing that, this is a place of home for me and return. This big recognition of return.
Wow. That's beautiful.
And then in 2009, I went to live there for 7 months, 8 months. Actually, no, more like 9 months. And then I went every winter basically to Puerto Rico and returned to be in the Caribbean. Yeah, until 2020. That was my last winter there.
Wow. Can you tell me a little bit? I'm just kind of the with the water is this, central theme. Like, is there like how the in the culture it's like, I don't know, I want to say honored, but like how it's recognized, appreciated, tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, it's a lot. It's interesting. It's venerated and respected
Mm-hmm.
as very, at least on the Atlantic side. Again, I grew up mostly and stay on the Atlantic side. I think the Caribbean waters are very different. And so I think the
Mm,
relationship to the water is very different there.
interesting.
Um, but Puerto Rico is one of the places where I think we have the largest number of year-round like bioluminescent
Oh,
waters,
wow.
beaches.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. There's the Dia del San Juan, which is when it's June 25th, where you walk backwards into the water and you make three wishes, and there's a whole ritual of cleansing that happens in the ocean specifically. Um, there's a lot of fear of the power of that water, and people,
Respect. Yeah.
rightfully so, respect
Mm-hmm.
the power of that water, the ocean water, I should say. And then there's the natural fresh waters that just run all through that island, and just
Wow.
so many rivers, especially rivers and lakes. And there's beautiful swimming holes, and I have so many sweet stories of, my dad's like growing up on the river, washing clothes in the river, going to get fresh water from the river. All of the river was central to life, and water was central to the culture that my father grew up in. The river in his town that was so central is dried up and
Mm.
really runs, and there's a lot of grief about just gentrification and colonialism and imperialism and extraction.
Mm.
There's been a lot of wear and tear, and there's still beautiful places of water that I've gotten to explore inland
Yeah.
and on coast. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for that little window. I appreciate that.
There's
So, your coach says swim out to the buoy, 500 yards about, and you're just there. You're home. No
I was
problem.
home. No
Yeah.
problem. Did not think twice that, yeah, I'm out. Thank you. Done. It was only afterwards when I got back to shore. She said, when I give that instruction, not everybody's able to think that's a good thing or follow my lead on that. So
Mm-hmm.
it just didn't occur to me that I wouldn't. Yeah.
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 Amazing.
Yeah. And I've been surprised at how, yeah, it just feels so right to be in these waters.
So then what was after that? So you get your coaching, you go to get coaching in the open water. Where does this take you?
Where does it take me? Well, that particular year, so this was 2023, um, I was only in Mexico for 6 weeks. So I had 6 lessons basically. So once a week. And then I went home, and I knew this was going to be a new part of my life, but my life was not set up to swim in open water when I came back to Portland. And my mother was not well. And so my attention fully when I got home, actually, when I had arrived, I should back up. When I arrived in Mexico that year, um, she was going into hospice. And so then when I got home, I knew that my full attention would be what extra attention I had or full attention I could give would be to my mom. And she lives in Tucson. So I did a couple of pool swims, but basically for the next 9 months, I didn't get back in the water again until actually a year I was out of the water a whole year, March to March.
Mm.
And then in March of 2024, oh wait, I'm getting these years mixed up. It must have been March of 2023. So that must have been 2022 that I took the first lesson.
Mm-hmm.
So I came back to Mexico in March of 2024 after she passed. And again, I had 6 weeks. And I will say in that first 6 weeks in 2023 that I was swimming, I had a goal to swim to Las Cuevas, which, if you know the region, you go out into the ocean and into this next bay. It's Las Cuevas. And for lots of reasons, we couldn't do that. But my girlfriend Angelica and I swam out to La Piedra, to the rock, and back, which was a 2.5 kilometer swim, which was my longest swim. So after 6 weeks of training, I did that swim, and it was a big deal. It was a really big deal. And I was terrified, and it was exhilarating, and I felt so accomplished. And then, yeah, and then I stepped out of the water and didn't go back in for a year. And then when I came back right at the time that there was going to be a race event that was being organized and like the next weekend. And I had not been in the water for a year.
Wow.
And I said, I said to my coach, I really want to do the event. And I was like, I want to do the 5K. And she's like, you haven't been in the water for a year. How about you do the 2.5K? How about we make this like a winning experience for you? And I was like, oh, I've already done a 2.5 last year. And she's like, yeah, but it's been a year. So it was great. I'm so glad that she convinced me to do the 2.5 that year. And it was a great experience. And it kicked off 6 weeks there to learn and do more swimming. And I was able to do really good training. Again, I could only come in, I think I came in twice a week for open water swimming, but I wasn't living in town. So it was a lot of swimming. But it was wonderful. And I'm so glad. Yeah, it was my first taste of an event that was all swimming. And learned a lot about myself. And what the poetry of it all is, one of my besties from college was visiting with two of her girlfriends that I'm really close with. And they were all at the finish line and they were cheering me on. And I really got a picture both of like the fellow students from my coach and then my girlfriends being there, just the kinds of support and community. Like people often understand and think about open water swimming as a solo sport. And I understand in many ways it is. It's a lot of quiet time in your mind and really listening to your body in a whole new way out of gravity and being held. It's a really different experience. And it's a community event in so many ways and cannot happen without can't happen safely without a lot of support. And it was magnificent in a way that I didn't expect. Like I've been solo swimming with my coach, and then suddenly I'm in this community of open water swimmers and a community of fellow like students, and then my community of my friendship. And it was just energizing beyond measure.
Yeah.
So that was the kickoff to my next 6-week season. And then I came back to Portland, not knowing what the heck I was going to do, but knowing that I wanted to swim more. And I remember there's my local pool, is down the street, and I went for a master's workout. I was like, okay, I'll start here. Like, I don't know where else to go. And I noticed that they had a swim lane, like a workout for open water swimmers. And I was like,
oh, wow.
This is totally radical. So I inserted myself into that lane and was ridiculously slower and all the things that I was like, I'm not sure these are my people. Like, I can't tell that I can keep up with them, whatever. They were very welcoming, so gracious. And at the end, one of the swimmers, Amanda Cross, said, if you want to do more of this, these are the 3 things you should do. And I did all 3 things that she said I should do. I contacted Barbara, and she does amazing. She volunteers to do 2 swims a week with the merfolk and a bunch of large group swims and an overnight camping. And I was like, great, I'm going to check in with her, get connected with the River Huggers, which is this activist swim group that started in 2012 after the Big Pipe project finished in Portland, which cleaned up the waterways of the Willamette and has been all about reclaiming our human connection to that water, to that fresh water and swimming. And then through that group, I got connected to this winter swimming group that started in 2022 that ad hoc organizes all kinds of beautiful swims. In the season, there's often 2 to 3 swims a day going. I don't know how many people are in that group. There's birthday swims. There's, winter dips with sauna, rented sauna. It's a whole world that opened up for me as a result. And I'd never swum in river before. So that whole summer and fall was all about river swimming and currents. And so our Willamette is a tidal river. So in addition to river currents, we're also working with the tides of the ocean. So in a weird way, maybe a poetic way, I feel just as connected to the ocean because of that river being the rivers I swim in regularly, which are the Columbia and the Willamette, are both tidal and connected to the ocean in that way. So, yeah.
Yeah. So initially you were saying like you would go to Mexico, you'd do these swims, and then you'd come back and not swim at all. And you said your life wasn't quite set up for it. So kind of what changed for you to make the space to make swimming possible?
It's a great question. I mean, I think having community was essential.
Yeah.
I mean, open water swimming is not like you put on your shoes and you go for a run and you come back home and you shower. That's just not what happens. It's safely, it's done with other people. Safely, it's done with a safety paddle. So I learned how precious and what a gift it is to have paddlers who want to, do a very slow paddle alongside you in a kayak or a sup or a canoe. And I really think it was the community that made that possible for me to make the space in my life. I love summer in Portland, but that was the first summer probably since the pandemic that I spent a whole summer in Portland without traveling. And I felt like I was getting to know my city, which I'd lived in for over 25 years for the first time from a totally different perspective, which was like, instead of these running and cycling over these bridges, I was swimming under these bridges and looking up and like getting connected to water in a whole new way where I live. So I think I just decided to carve that out. And I will say, to be completely transparent, I was healing the grief of a breakup of a person I thought I was going to be with for the rest of my life. I was healing the loss of my mother and a loss of a sense of home because she was a home base for me. And she was my second parent to pass. And so Tucson no longer had that same pull for me, even though one of my sisters still lives there. And I think I was trying to figure out how to reground. Yeah. And I couldn't imagine not swimming, I think would be the way that in open water. The pool is like a treadmill at this point. Like I appreciate having an access point, but it's not where my heart, it's not where my joy lives.
It's the laboratory. That's what I call it. We used to like to run experiments in the lab, but so that it benefits us in the open water. That's what I use the pool for. So
that's a great perspective. Yeah. I'm trying to remember that.
Yeah. And what were you getting in these 6-week spurts you were getting with your coach and Mako? What kind of seeds was she planting that was obviously flourishing in your body? You're really loving swimming. It wasn't becoming drudgery, whatever, so take me a little bit there.
Yeah, it's a great question. I cannot emphasize the learnings that translated onto land for me. One, obviously I was kicking to survive, not to move. And I was like, oh gosh, how much am I doing this in my life? Like wasting energy in survival mode instead of going with the energy that's around me, which is the water. She kept saying, we're not swimming in the water, we're swimming with the water. We're not in the ocean, we're with the ocean. And just this idea, it gave me perspective. Like I am so small in the vastness of this space. And the idea that I will be held, like as panicked and scared as I might come in life and in the water, I'm not going to drown. I have a really strong body. I learned that was a really powerful, she'd be like, your legs are your superpower. Like, don't deny them. They're also the biggest oxygen. They need the most oxygen.
Exactly.
So they can be misused. So it really reminded me like, okay, superpowers can be, something to pay attention to in my life.
Power comes great responsibility, right?
Exactly. And a great energy suck if you don't pay attention and build the other superpowers out of in life. I think one of the other big things that I learned, so this year was my first 5K event, and she was training me for that event. And she was like, you need to learn about drafting. And I was like, I don't like drafting. I tried drafting once when I was cycling and training for triathlons, and I had a big accident on a highway and I hated it and I never want to do it. And it's really rude. You're so close to people. It felt dangerous. And she drafted me, and then she asked me to draft her. And I could tell I was just kept pulling away. And, I'm a woman in my life, Shannon, that's all about closeness, all about connection, all about being vulnerable. And I was being asked to do these things in the water. And I was like, I just was rejecting them. And then she said, I want you to think of drafting as resting. And I cannot explain to you exactly what happened, but something hit my body I was like, oh my God. She's like, you're going to need that power later, and you don't have to break the water alone. And I kept thinking about how I'd set up my life, to break the water alone or to not get too close because it would make them uncomfortable or me uncomfortable. And the fact is, I teach leaders to get close because if we don't have community, we will burn out or check out or get sick or opt out. We can't sustain that pace long distance on our own. And so I decided to fully employ everything she taught me about drafting. I literally learned drafting 24 hours before the event. And then I was like, okay, this is my lab. This is my experiment. I'm going to try and do this in the event. And it was awesome. It was a completely different experience. And I loved kind of going from group to group as I checked out different groups of individual or pods of swimmers. And I could tell it was a totally different event. And I started to realize that this is what I do in my life's work. And I'd never had a language for it.
Wow.
Which is I draft other leaders so they can rest a little bit until they need to sprint.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Thanks.
Where did so you've done the 5K, you do the drafting. It's funny, I just have to reflect for a minute. You brought me right to one of my first I don't know what to call it because it wasn't like my first open water swim, but where I was really just starting to build comfort and confidence in the water. And we did this swim in Donner Lake where you just swim from one end of the lake to the other. I think it's 2 miles or something like that. But it's just like you start, it's just like a mass start, but you have the whole width of the lake, like everybody's just going for this banner on the other side. And it was just really interesting because usually it wasn't a buoy course. There's no, it's really just get there however you want. And so when you push off, you just find these little pods and you just try that one out. Yep. Oh, next over here, next one over here. But I'd never really, the way you're describing it, I think once I started getting into solo marathon swimming, I just kind of let all that go because obviously you're by yourself out there and not drafting off anyone other than the energy of your crew, which is critical and essential. And it's that same community, but just different. But I've never really appreciated kind of drafting the way that you describe it. So I just love that elimination thank you for that.
Thank you, Shannon. Yeah, it has been transformative. And really, I just got much more connected with these other swimmers and in a way that I didn't expect. And so when I got to the finish line, I was like, I drafted with you for a while. And I remember you. It was right? You're not chatting in the water, but it's almost hey, I'm here and part of your little group for a while.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You memorize swimsuit patterns.
Exactly. Some numbers, some fins or whatever people had at your feet. Yep.
Yeah, that's cool.
Thanks.
That's cool. So after your first 5K, how did you feel after that? That's huge. Just 3 miles, from being I'm not a swimmer, I'm not an athlete. I just know I'm at home on the water. How does it feel to do 3 miles?
It felt exhilarating. I don't know. Yeah, we had a big celebratory, all of the students for my coach, we had a big celebratory lunch afterwards. A lot of us did the event and some of us did the 2.5 and some of us did the 5K. And I think all of us, we were all women, and I think we were all just a little bit stunned. I think there was a lot of integrating this big thing that had just happened. And all of us, various forms of raising young people, you could feel the kids around, the family energy. Most of them have partners that were there or spouses. And, people were pulling at our attention, but all of us were a little bit I can't believe we just did that. We kept kind of coming back to each other and being did we just do that? I think we just did that. And that was a big deal. And so it's kind of hard to explain. I mean, I think some people are that's a big deal, but it's really nothing I imagined myself being able to do, Shannon, before I did it. And now I can't get enough. I will say, the minute I hit some target goal, I'm okay, what's the next one? How can I add to this? What is my body capable of? But really, what is my mind capable of? Mm-hmm. I remember in 2020, when the pandemic happened and everything shut down, I had signed up for a leadership program to climb Mount Baker, which is one of the mountains in Washington. And none of the typical hiking trails were open. They had closed everything down. So here I am, every week I'm trying to find a new place that I can, get some miles in with a pack and not be around people. And it took a lot of effort. And I was on my own a lot. It was a lot of alone time. And I was really nervous. I was by far the oldest person in this group that was going to attempt this climb. And, we gathered for the first day and we do the first climb out and I'm the last person. There's something about being disabled when I was little and this sense that I'm a burden and I'm slowing everyone down. So that messaging is really strong in me. And so I was at the end and one of the guides was staying back with me as we were walking and I said, I don't know if I can do this climb. We were going to attempt the summit the next day. I'm so much slower than everyone else. And we had been talking about what I do for a living. And I said, yeah, I set a goal when I was 26 to end racism in my lifetime. And, I'm still working towards that goal. It's almost 30 years later at that time. And when I said, I don't know if I can do this, and he's like, you've got this, Nanci. He's like, you've already set your mind on some big, gnarly, hard goal and you've stayed with it. This is a mental game. It's not a physical game. And he was just so relaxedly confident. It was incredible to hear the shift of these are not disparate. These are not disconnected. And I don't think it's a coincidence that most of the women that are drawn to the workshops and the work that I do have that long game in mind and are looking for those sustainable tools because we've already made the decision. We just need to figure out how to keep our mind on the prize and sustain our bodies as we do that. Like we can't burn out. It can't be a sprint. And that I'm really getting, I did life as a sprint for a long time. I would get like an adrenaline high and a rush on being so exhausted and my adrenals tapped. Like that almost was it was like an addiction. And that is not sustainable for endurance sports. It's not sustainable for the kind of life I want to lead and the kind of purpose that I feel like I'm called to. And it's been so joyful to see these overlapping learnings as I think about what's the next big goal in these doable chunks. Yeah. And so, of course, the next goal after the 5K was, okay, I'm going to add 3 miles. Like, I think I'm in like a 3-mile thing right now. So I came home that summer, started swimming with the merfolk, and Barbara, who runs that group, had said something about this swim around Mackinac Island, where I grew up in Detroit, my early first 10 years. And I went to Mackinac Island once with my family when I was 6 years old, had never been back since. And what I loved about it is it wasn't a race. So I'm still intimidated a bit by race energy, which doesn't have to be the focus of what we talk about here, but I'll just say that. But it was an event and I loved it. It was a community event. It was a fundraiser for the women's center there, Mackinac Women's Center. And I was like, I think I'm going to do this. And so I asked my sisters if they would come with me, if we could do a return trip. We had not been back to Michigan since before my dad had died. So that was 13 years. And our elders, my uncles, my aunts, my cousins that I'm growing up, everyone's aging. And they said yes. So the event was a month ago, not quite a month ago, August 10th. And yeah, it was scary and exciting. I can't believe that one of my sisters flew from Mexico, the other one from Arizona to be with me. We were really poor, Shannon. Even my mom was really committed to us having vacations. Almost all were camping on a lake somewhere, and she hated camping, but it was what we could afford. And the Grand Hotel was like, if you weren't a guest, you couldn't get on the property. And the three of us, after the race, we went and sat on the porch and ordered really overpriced food and kind of reclaimed a space for us there, our family, and toasted my mom and dad. And we had this beautiful waiter from Puebla, Mexico. And so we got to speak in Spanish with him. And everything felt so as it was meant to be in this really sweet way. And somebody asked me, like, why are you doing this? Why are you... And I was like, there's something about reclaiming my relationship to the water and this space. And in this case, to that island. That was it was a luxury vacation for my parents, Shannon. We went off season. It was raining the whole time. My mom was super bummed. We couldn't have afforded peak season. And it was the first and only time that I remember us vacationing in a hotel, up until that point of my life. So yeah, the morning of the swim, I was really nervous. It was really choppy. There had been lightning storms the day before. A big system had moved in. And I was like, oh my God, they're going to cancel. They're going to delay. There were white chops. The first mile, I was like, I cannot do 8 miles of this. People had on the Facebook group had been like, think about Dramamine for seasickness and all this stuff. And I was like, this is a really different, element. When I did the shakeout swim the day before at the finish line, there was a big sign that said absolutely no swimming, dangerous currents, and I was like, oh, interesting. So this is where I'm going to be coming out of the
Right.
water. Thanks
Yeah.
for that piece of information. And, while we were waiting for the ferry person was like, oh yeah, 5 people just drowned. And, people need,
Oh my
I was
gosh.
like, I'm not sure I need to hear all of this right now. So I was definitely nervous that first mile and seriously considered getting out.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's a mind event. It's
Mind
not a
game.
physical event.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I made the decision. I was like, this is not out of your reach, Nanci. You know how to swim. Just keep swimming. You're safe. People have you. And the water changed and it got calm and it was so peaceful and lapping and clear. And it was one of the most beautiful times in my life, to be completely
Wow.
honest. I didn't stop till the first we talked about my strategy and I stopped at
Mm-hmm.
the aid station. So about 3.7 miles and my sisters were there just screaming, cheering me on and got me food and gave me a big hug before I went back in and met me at the next aid station. And then were there on the finish line for me when I got out. 8.2 and probably then some miles because I did not do great sighting. So I swam some extra. Um, yeah. And I had total
That's
noodle legs and
yeah.
hard to stand afterwards, but I
Right.
get out. Yeah.
What else? So the first mile's hard. You make it some like, how did you keep, I guess, you get that energy from stopping at the aid station, seeing your sisters, right? So but then like, what's it like in the water that second, after you push off again, you still have,
Oh,
5 more miles to go.
yes, that was really hard, I will say. And my shoulder started hurting. So I
Mm,
having some issues with some alignment and possibly tendonitis. And I got really scared and I was like, should you get out? You don't want to push this. You don't want to get permanently injured. There's so many decisions you're making on like a minute by minute basis about
yeah.
this balance of listening to your body and understanding that fear presents barriers in our
Mm-hmm.
minds that
Mm-hmm.
convince us to give up or to get
Yeah,
out.
for
And
sure.
I'm constantly in this battle, like in my life and in the water. What am I paying attention to? Should I be paying more attention to this? Is this not present time? Is this a real pain? Is this just soreness?
Right.
Meanwhile, I'm just swimming.
Right. Yeah. It's just that's all
And
the stuff going
yeah,
on
it's
in your
all that's
head. Yeah.
happening. Yeah, all of that's happening. In addition to like the water, and people had said the washing machine was coming up, which was like exactly as it sounds. And thank God the washing machine was unplugged that day, so we had. But I
Nice.
was really nervous, like that's coming up, and I'm tired already. Um, and I think, if the pain were getting worse and worse, I would have gotten out. But it was just this steady, slow kind
Mm.
of thud of a kind of a low grade. And I thought, I think this is trying to get me to get out, but I don't think this is a real injury. I think
Mm.
this is something else. And sure enough, I finished. My shoulder was fine the minute I got out
Yeah.
of the water.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of discernment I think it comes with experience and trial and error. And I say this when I got into bodybuilding and weightlifting in my late 20s. I was injured all the time. I didn't know the difference between pushing
Mm-hmm.
myself and destroying my body. And
Right.
this is kind of the joke was like Nanci would go to work. She'd work out for a week and then she'd be out for 3 because she was
Oh my
recovering.
gosh.
I mean, I would like tear the rhomboids off my ribs and like I was totally
Oh
pushing
gosh.
my body like way too hard. Did not
Yeah.
understand you have to support the joints by building the strength in the ligaments before you use
Mm.
the muscles. Like I didn't learn it. I mean, I learned it all by trial and error.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of people are, understandably afraid of injury and
Mm-hmm.
injury as like, that's where the growth happens. Like that's where I learn the most about what
Mm-hmm.
I'm capable of. And often I heal stronger. And I think
Mm-hmm.
it's been a huge shift for me when I think about my own work, which is people want to open up about where they've been hurt early in their lives and the kind of pain, and they don't want to look at it. And I'm like, no, if you can heal that, that is where the growth and the inner resilience and sense of competence really stems from. Like there isn't anything you really can't handle,
Right.
really. But not believing in ourselves and our capacity, that's the mental game that we mostly have to overcome.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. Just to kind of wrap it up in a bow, what's next for you, Nanci? What this amazing journey you've been on, how much water's, come back into your life? Where are you gonna take
Yeah,
this?
that's a great question. I don't know long term. I can't imagine a life where I'm not swimming in the open water. So I will say that my next added 3 mile goal is the 11 mile 12 bridge swim that runs down the Willamette, which is will be right around my 59th birthday
Wow.
next year. So this one feels it's amped up both in mileage, but also that I won't be able to wear fins, which I was able to wear at the Mackinac Island swim because it wasn't a
Mhm.
race. Um, and there's a cutoff for speed. So now
Mhm.
all the messages around being slow are going to have to be dealt with. And they've been kind of lingering in the background for me. And frankly, I think it's just connected to the messages I still carry around being a burden because I was disabled, the fear that my parents had about how my life would be limited. And I'm
Yeah.
excited to take on that next piece of
Right.
healing for myself and to really challenge
Exciting.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
It doesn't define me. It's in the past.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh,
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing your story, Nanci. That's beautiful.
Thank you so much for asking, Shannon, and seeing the marathon swimmer in me from the very beginning. I really appreciate you. And I want to do a shout out to my open water swim community, to Jennifer, who was my safety paddle for my long swim that I did in preparation, the one long swim for the Mackinac Island event. So thank you.